local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the beat. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Rockingham, and welcome to the feed. It's Mike and Marty. We're here with Michael Stack and Sean Murphy, and we're going to be talking today about a new program that's come to Bellows Falls called Bellows Falls Trades. But first, Marty's going to give us the local events.
So happening at the Opera House this week is the second week of Top Gun Maverick. And I would recommend it. If you saw Top Gun back in the 80s, it's a nice blend of enough of the old stuff
Yeah.
with some new twists and new technology and new louder surround sound to make it definitely worth going, definitely worth the $6. And if you're looking for something to do tonight, the classic movie is Body Heat, and it's being sponsored by Edward Jones and Bill Stevens.
Yes.
Imagine
I would
that.
recommend Top Gun
I would
also,
recommend,
too.
yeah.
I was going in as a skeptic. I saw it this weekend thinking, oh, it's just going to be another, testosterone-juiced movie. And it was actually really good. The pacing was good. The plot was good. They really packed a lot into like a 2-hour movie. I was surprised when
It
it
was
came
good.
out that it was just 2 hours.
It
Anyway.
had good music.
But
It was
today, we're segueing in here. Our Top Gun guys here today are Michael and Sean. Sean's the assistant principal at Bellows Falls High School. Most people probably know that. And Michael is brand new back to the area. He started up a nonprofit called Bellows Falls Trades. And do you want to tell us a little bit about, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself first,
Sure.
and then
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think for me the story is one of being born in this area but leaving through my education, career, etc., but always having a home here and always being connected to this area. And my heart is really in this area, and I've retired recently from the financial services industry and honestly feel very privileged to be back in the area and be able to give back to the community. And that's what this is all about. I'm looking for ways to give back to the community. So for the past, I'd call it a year, I've been on what I would call a listening tour where I've gone around. I've met folks like Sean at the high school. I've gone to the trade schools. I've met many of the local businesses, many of them that I've known. I've known the names over the years, Coda, James, that I've known over the years. And really the bottom line is for me, as far as if you want a headline, I've been extremely positively surprised by how willing the community and the school, the businesses, the schools, the tech centers have been to open their doors for somebody like myself, a private citizen, to come in and help. I know we've all been, through hell for the past couple of years with COVID, et cetera. But I also think that there's a paradigm shift going on in the education system, and that is the 4-year college prep program that we all kind of grew up with, and we were all told this is the way to go, this is the way you have to go this direction to be successful. I think the world's really waking up to the reality that 70% of our students graduate, and this is not a criticism, it's just a reality, and 4 years later they don't have a college degree. A lot of people go to school, they end up with $250,000 of debt, and they can't get jobs that'll help them pay that debt down. So the bottom line is, I'm a privileged person to be able to come back, retire to my hometown, and honestly, I have a ton of gratitude, basically because what I was given at a very young age by learning to, a strong work ethic, principles, values, etc. Working on the Stickney farm, working with people like Richard Stickney, Arnold Fisher, the Coda family. The headline to me, again, over my past 9 months of this listening tour, is that those things, and it was hard for me to be outside of Bellows Falls and kind of watch things going dark downtown, businesses closing up, jobs going away, etc. But the good news is that those values, that work ethic, those people that were there that taught me as a young person, really how to be successful in this world, they're still there. And the school is very open to partnering with them. And I'm just a facilitator, to be honest with you. The heavy lifting is really being done down at the school. Mark Ebo, who's the work-based guidance counselor, Sean, vice principal, Heather Warrius, all the way up through the board, Andy Haas, taking on this new role. The great news is that the resources there, the students are there, which is the raw material, and by bringing together the businesses, the students, and the school, I think we should have a killer application for making wonderful things happen for these young people. And then obviously, if it's good for the kids, it's going to be good for the community. So,
Right.
Long-winded answer, but that's that's how.
And Sean, you've been working with work-based education for quite a while now. At least the high school has. How do you see this new partnership working with you?
Yeah, so when Mark came in 5 years ago, he was hired
Mark Ebo.
as a school counselor, and he started our work-based learning, and he put so much into it. He's developed a ton of great resources. He's currently in the Agency of Education sponsored program where he's going to get a certificate, an endorsement to his license for work-based learning. So we really were hitting the ground running with that, and then COVID hit, and it pretty much stopped everything. And there were so many other things taking our focus away. So then when Mike and Bellows Falls Trades came in and we started having this conversation, it was really exciting because we're going to take what we have, and then we're going to add everything that Bellows Falls Trades is able to bring in terms of community partners and just energy, and take our program and really it's just gonna run, and it's gonna keep going and get bigger, and the kids are gonna benefit so much.
Yeah. So what spectrum or what slice of the student body do you see going with Bellows Falls Trades?
So we have about a third of our kids currently that do the tech center, whether it's Springfield or Brattleboro, and then right now we have 25 kids that have signed up to kind of take part in some job shadowing and hopefully eventually some interning through our work-based learning program. And some of that is based on things that we already had in place, and then some of that is what Mike's been able to bring to the table. So my hope would be that almost every student has an opportunity to do this. I mean, we have kids that are already college bound that are going to do some job shadowing, just like, hey, I might want to be a lawyer. That's a lot of schooling. Maybe I should have some experiences with that in high school before I spend all that time and money pursuing that degree. So
One of the things I would add is that, and I think Bellows Falls, Sean mentioned Mark Ebo, and he's very technically proficient. And the reality is there's a lot of sophistication to this process because of child labor laws, etc. It's not simple. It took me months of talking with people to get somewhat of a handle. I'm dependent upon the school and their expertise. But the thing that I see, is Bellows Falls is ahead of the curve in terms of their willingness and the desire to consider something different.
Right.
And a lot of times in institutions, it's very difficult to get everybody on board and rowing in the right direction or in the same direction. And that's what I found here, is I found a willing partner that has the expertise. So anytime I presented them with an option and an additional business or whatever, they've gone right for it. The other thing that they're considering doing is, and this talks a little bit about the community garden that we're proposing, etc., is they've brought me in to meet with the middle school. And one of the things that I found up to the Springfield River Valley Tech Center is that there's a lot of students that would benefit by starting work-based or tech-based education. A lot of kids have to kind of like bang their head against the wall doing, if you will, checking the boxes. I mean, education is never checking the boxes, but it's not. It's not specifically what's the best thing for them.
Yeah.
And that's the message I kept getting from the school. We're going to do what's best for the kids, to the point of we went down into the middle school met with, is it Susan or Sue Johnson?
Sue Johnson. Yeah.
Sue Johnson, and I was blown away how quickly the high school, which brought me in,
Right.
and the middle school were able to kind of come on to the same, realization of we need to do X, Y, and Z. And so we've partnered with the middle school now to try to bring this process down to them, to the point where we brought in River Valley Tech Center, and we're going to sponsor a summer camp for, I think they gave us 15 slots at the summer camp. So we're going to sponsor, it's like a 4-day, like a week-long summer camp. And the school immediately jumped on it. They're going to, because they know for some families, the transportation's a real issue. So the school's going to provide the transportation. We're going to fund the camp. And I think you guys are even providing lunch or something like that. So, I mean, it's just a great, and the beautiful thing is the summer camp, why that works so well is because there's no conflicts for the kids, whether it's school, classes,
Or
sports,
sports,
social.
yeah.
So they get a really good look at the tech center, what's up there. And I want to go to this camp. I mean, this looks like a ball, the things that they see and do.
Yeah.
So
they do
I
a
think,
lot.
that, and then the community garden is a whole nother piece where, starting in the elementary school, where the garden's going to be right next to the elementary school, Sean and his team is trying to coordinate right down from, the high school, the middle school, into the elementary school, and get everybody on the same, the same approach in terms of, project-based learning or work-based learning,
Right.
where they can get out and get their hands dirty,
Right.
and carry that up through the education process. And the beautiful thing is, Sean's knowledge of, again, all the requirements, they can figure out ways from using flexible education plans, which is a customization of an education plan for the individual student. And, in the past, we've kind of always gone to the standardized approach. Teach to the test. Everybody's got to pass the standardized test. And that just doesn't work for everybody. Now, it's more efficient, and, you can measure
it does-
results.
yes, you're
but,
right.
but the
But
reality
it doesn't
is,
help if you're going to get a job.
it's not the right thing for some kids, and these guys get that. And that's, to me, that's where I see this paradigm shift taking place, is these guys get it and they're willing to do something about it. And that's a game changer.
Right. How do you see, I mean, you're seeing the shift, but how would you relate that to like the national trends, where we've been and where we're going,
Yeah.
and how you guys are adapting to that? Because
Well-
it sounds like you've come back from the wilderness, and you have a vision.
Actually, I came back from being part of the problem.
Oh,
And part of the problem, I don't know if you have that chart that we had up earlier. Basically what's happened in the past 3 decades in this country is we've traded middle-class jobs and standard of living for profits. So corporations outsourced jobs, they outsourced capital, and with that went the jobs. So this chart, the last chart that we were on, that shows the decline in this country
Yeah.
of manufacturing-based, high-paying manufacturing jobs. And Bellows Falls is just a microcosm of that, and that's happened across this country. That's why, there's a lot of political unrest, I believe, and social unrest is there's been a lot of jobs that have been eliminated, and in honestly, the underlying objective of maximizing profits and free cash flow. Well, that doesn't do much for the individual that lives in a manufacturing-based town. So that's a secular change that's been going on for a long time. And I do believe, this is the good news, I always like to come back to the good news, there is something that positive that came out of COVID. And what we came to understand is that all of this just-in-time inventory and outsourcing of all these manufacturing jobs really created a very fragile global economic situation, and our country in
suffering
particular.
right now.
I think that's going to change over the next at least couple of decades. And if we want those jobs, they talk about reshoring and bringing back manufacturing to this country. Well, if we don't have the skill sets to cover those jobs,
Exactly.
corporations are not going to be able to bring those jobs back to this country. And I really think we're on the forefront. And again, Bellows Falls is just a microcosm what's going on in the country. I think we're ahead of the curve because we understand it. We're partnering, private and public coming together for the benefit of the students and the bottom line for the community. So I think from a big picture perspective, there's there's factors that are going on that are going to reverse this negative trend that's happened over the past 3 decades. The bad news is it could take 2 decades.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's not going to be overnight.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people, you know, we've brought people together, and the kind of the immediate reaction is, okay, where are the kids? Where are the jobs? And you know, we're dealing with precious cargo here, and we have to take it a step at a time. We have to do it right. That's why I'm partnering with the high school. They are the experts. They vet the kids. They know who needs it and who is appropriate for going in this direction. I can't have that insight. I can support them. And I will say one other thing. They're being asked to do so much more. The guidance counselors now, today, are being asked to do so much more. It's amazing the things that they get involved with. When we were growing up, our guidance counselors, it was very different. You know, it was kind of like, what's your name? You know, I mean, they know these kids intimately, and it's a very different world. So I'm thrilled to be able to help them in any way that I can.
Yeah, Mark?
I find it interesting that it seems like perfect timing, because every single contractor that, if you drive through town, every oil company is looking, every plumbing company is looking, every electrician is looking, everybody in the trades cannot find help. So it seems like the perfect relationship. And I think that and Sean, you can correct me on this, I think there's a swing back to realizing that not every kid should go to college. I think at the end of kind of when I graduated, I think it was still about a split. There's kids that you knew were headed for college and kids that you knew were going to take on the trades, or even back then there was still a few, you know, manufacturing jobs. There was still a few machine tool jobs or those type jobs around here. And I think then it swung to, no, nobody wants to do those jobs. They all should go to college, but college is crazy expensive now. You know, and so it seems to make sense. Do you see that's starting to slowly shift back?
Yeah, and I think that we're trying to redefine success.
Right.
So traditionally, or at least for the past few years, success is how many kids can you get to graduate, and what percentage of those kids are going off to college. And then the reality is we're not necessarily tracking that number, like how many of those kids are graduating from college. It's, as long as they go. Like, we could have 100% of our kids graduate and 100% go to college, and then 100% of those kids could make it a semester in college, but it still looks good because 100% of them went. So we're having a lot of those conversations at the building level, at the district level, at the board level, and I think people are really on board with let's change what success looks like. If we can get kids to become trained in some specific skill where they can then go be a contributing member of whether it's this society or the greater society, then that's a win. And we want to be able to have those conversations with parents and with kids where it's okay to not go to 4 years of college or 2 years of college. Like, this is another path, and you can be super successful doing that.
Do you find that there's a shift in realizing that not everybody learns the same way too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's certainly
we're finally
been,
kind of getting there, that some kids just really need hands-on.
Right, or they need a break. I mean, we have block scheduling at the high school, so it's generally 4 classes, 80 to 87 minutes at a time, and that's a really long time for anyone to sit still, let alone teenagers. So looking at these flexible pathways, looking at these personalized learning plans where we can get these kids to go out into the community and learn a skill and get credit for whether it's an elective or course specific. I mean, if they go to working on a farm, they could potentially earn some science credit for the work that they're doing. And so I think it's really important that we start this young because it gives kids hope. And I think that if you're looking 5 years ago as a 6th grader at what the high school looks like, if you're not fitting into the I want to go to class and I want to then go to college, you might not see something that will match what you're looking for. But if we can build these programs and they can experience the community garden, they can experience some work-based learning, whether it's going to a factory or these group experiences, then they're like, oh, all right, that's me. That's what I want to do. And then maybe math class is a little more tolerable. because they see the value in what they're doing.
They understand how it's applicable.
Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to sit in class and be like, when am I ever going to use this?
Right.
But all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, I just learned how to do that. And,
Yeah, exactly.
So you have a job fair coming up, correct?
Yes, on Friday, we have the partnership with the Brattleboro Community Development, Community Credit
Brattleboro
Corporation.
Development Credit Corporation.
Oh, sorry.
I know that
Stick with the
acronym well.
acronym. That way I can't get in trouble.
Mark coached me on that this morning, and I still messed it up. So yeah, they had some community partners. We had some community partners. Bellows Falls Trades had some community partners, and I think the idea is to get these businesses in, and kids can potentially get a summer job out of it. And if we have some seniors that aren't planning on going to college and don't necessarily have a path yet, they might get a career out of it. So it's very exciting.
It's pretty amazing when you look down the list of companies that are coming in. Hubbard's is coming over, and they are, I don't want to say they're desperate for employees, but they've got so much
I would say
opportunity.
desperate.
Would you? Okay,
Yeah.
well,
I think everyone
And they really
is.
pay
Yeah.
well, too.
They pay well. They've got a career path, and that is one of the most sophisticated businesses around in terms of ag science. So if somebody doesn't necessarily want to go to college, but they have a big interest in ag and they don't want to just work on the farm, they have such a potential by going into a company like Hubbard's and learning, all there is to know about, animal husbandry, specifically the birds, and the list is chromas coming down to the the potential at a company like that for somebody locally. I mean those are the, if you will, the high-paying manufacturing jobs that I think we need to bring back to the state and to the country. The demographics, and if you look at the breakdown of the labor in the job pie, if you will, in our state, a lot of it's healthcare related. It's essentially, I see the state as becoming one that's a kind of a caretaker environment.
Well, our
I take care of
population
you,
is-
you take care of me, but
Yeah.
that doesn't create any wealth. That just kind of redistributes the wealth. And really what we need manufacturing jobs that produce things that have, the potential to pay their employees well, produce things, sell them outside of the state or whatever, to really bring up standard of living and, bring up the economy in local communities. So we have that around here. And the question is really going to be is, how can we provide them with the employees that they need, but also, the economic environment that, they'll flourish and they'll grow in.
Right. So what would you say are the low-hanging fruit that you're looking at right now as far as employment go? Because, like you said, there aren't any big manufacturing jobs, but there are a lot of jobs available. So what would you say the community could do to help you get these low-hanging employment? Because I think employment is the primary goal, right?
Sure. And I think, the issue that Bellows Falls has faced for so many years, and I've talked with the CODA and CODAs, et cetera, it's about retention. How do they find employees and how do they retain them? How do they get to keep them here in the community and get them to raise a family here, et cetera. So it's really going to be about connecting. We've got businesses here. There's plenty of job opportunities here. It's about connecting them, getting them here in the community, and we've got, like I said, we've got 25 companies, or 20 to 25 come to this job fair.
Right.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah. Well, I see that as the key too, is keeping young people in the community, because that's going to create that culture of employment, and it's going to actually bring more people in, I think.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I have two kids that left. I mean, they one came back and lives in Chester, but my son lives in Brooklyn, and it was just not in the cards for him to stay here.
Well, the beautiful thing about COVID is so many people now are working remotely that we have an opportunity to take advantage of that shift. So not only do we need to train these young folks to create the jobs, but we've got to figure out ways to take advantage of that shifting in the society from working in large cities to rural areas or more rural areas, less expensive cost of living, et cetera. That's a real opportunity for us.
And I would say that we have to take on some of the responsibility in the high school of teaching these kids employability skills.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
One of the concerns that I have is are we teaching kids how to be just good students so that they can go to college and learn those employability skills versus doing that ourselves. So part of what Mark and the work-based learning program are going to do is they're going to develop this essentially employability course
Right.
that kids experiencing the internships or job shadowing will take. So and then interviewing the business partners, like, okay, what do you need from these kids? What are they coming in with skill-wise, and what are they lacking, and what can we do to bridge that gap?
That's great. I mean, because those are general skills that no matter what you're doing, if you have those general skills, if you can show up in the morning.
Yeah. Simple, right? Show up, put the cell phone down.
Exactly.
All right. Marty's giving me the.
I'm giving you the
guys
high
are
sign that
going
we're
over-
running out of time. So we just need to, we only have about a minute left. So contact information, if anyone has questions in the audience, or there's an employer out there that, would like to join in with you. Those are all the best places? Bellows Falls Trades. Michael, you've given your number, your email.
My email address, yeah.
And Sean, your email address.
Yep.
Great.
That works.
Great.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time. I'm looking over at Collins shaking his head yes. And so thank you, Bellows Falls. Thank you guys for
Yes.
coming on. It was
our privilege.
fascinating.
Pleasure.
Great.
Pleasure.
Great. I hope you'll come back sometime, give us some updates, and
Absolutely.
until
Yes,
then,
perfect.
we'll see you next week, Bellows
Bye,
Falls.
community.
Bye.
Thanks.
Great job. Wow.
Thank you.
News, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and